Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to talk about the ongoing struggles of the Baltimore Orioles and talk about what they might want to do to reboot themselves either for 2025 or to come back stronger in 2026. We're also going to get into some recent moves with a few players hitting the IL, Cade Stroud and Maverick Hanley coming up to the major leagues. And that will be on tonight's episode. But first, as we like to do at the top of every episode, we want to welcome a new member of our Patreon community. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it's because the Orioles are struggling and people are like, all right, time to go back to the prospects, which is what we focus on. But I like all the new signups we've been getting. Joseph Borkowski, thank you for signing up at the AA level. I hope you enjoy the content and I hope you stick around a while because we're not going anywhere.
Absolutely. And this is a good time to plug that next week, paying members of our Patreon community will get our updated top 50 for the month of May. We're going to get to work on those lists and have that up for you early next week. In the meantime, we're going to have to watch more Orioles baseball, which in the major leagues has not been going well. The Orioles back in Baltimore on Monday night after a tough road trip that saw them drop 2 out of 3 at Washington before going to Detroit, losing both ends of a doubleheader on Saturday, and then dropping Sunday's finale in what was probably one of the harder games of the year to watch, as they put out a pretty bad lineup against the reigning Cy Young winner in Tarek Skubal. And the result was just about what you would have expected in that scenario, as they lost 7-0 to Detroit. Now, as we record this, the Orioles are beating the Yankees, and we should know the result of that game, hopefully, before this episode ends. But even if the Orioles do win on Monday night, they're going to improve to just 11-17 on the season. And we talked a lot on last week's show about what is going wrong. And there's going to be plenty of time to talk about that more. So we thought for tonight, we would take a little bit of a different approach and focus on how the Orioles get themselves out of this, and whether that's this season or next season. But regardless, there is still a core here that is worth building around. So, Nick, I will start with you. Is it time to wave the white? First of all, to wave the white flag at the major leagues, or do you still hold out some hope that they will turn things around?
I'll play nice. I'm gonna give it one more month, but that's about it. You got the expanded playoffs. The American League is less than stellar, we'll say, this year. But I don't know. It's hard to remain optimistic. I know last week we had our session. Some people were like, "Man, that was depressing. What's going on?" Some people, I saw some comment like they appreciated the honest takes. But at the end, I think Zach, you asked, "All right, are we good now? Can we move on? Let's have a good week." And it did feel good, to be honest. And then we watched those two series that you just mentioned, and I was like, "Yeah, I lied. Not good. We're back in the dark place again, and it's darker." I don't know. It's as much as I am not excited at all about Kyle Gibson. He's pitching tomorrow. I'm not interested in really watching that at all, but I do recognize the fact that the bar is very, very low and he can help raise that bar. And Zach Eflin should be back soon. Trevor Rogers looked okay in his very first outing. Chase McDermott, had the usual Chase McDermott issues, but overall, I mean, they're back on the mound. So hopefully they're back in a few weeks before things get out of control too much. So yes, hopefully, as long as we can just get this rotation to tread water and not even tread water well, just barely keep the head above water and remain in striking distance, teams aren't going to make deals right now. But, I do think that this team is in a prime position to make some big deals. And, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit on the Major League roster that can make this team hopefully better, like shipping Charlie Morton literally anywhere, shipping Ryan Mountcastle literally anywhere. Like, congrats, Ryan Mountcastle. You and Austin Slater have the same number of home runs this year. And I think Austin Slater tore his meniscus. I don't know. He's out forever. He's just not cutting it. So there's some low hanging fruit here that you can chop off the tree and hopefully improve this roster. Hopefully the small incremental improvements on the pitching side help. Hopefully these bats, I don't know, apparently we're now getting an adult in the room on Tuesday. Maybe that will help. I don't know. It's the biggest issue for me is now the lineup, because we all knew the pitching rotation was not going to be good. We enjoyed what this bullpen was hopefully going to do, but this lineup was supposed to carry the team, and they're not. And that's what's causing me the most frustration out of all this.
Yeah, it's true. The lineup is the bigger problem, because even, and I'm not saying that it's not hard to go out and hit when you're consistently down early and often, but I mean, offense is way too talented to be hitting the way they have to date. I mean, season started off great with like pound on the runs in that first like 2 out of the first 4 games, but ever since then it's been crap. I will say that Tomoyuki Sugano, the Sugar Man, he looks pretty awesome so far. So if you can get Eflin back, he continues to pitch well. Again, Kyle Gibson can be like a adult 5th starter in the clubhouse, and maybe you can chip away there. Povich looked great last time out. Again, this is just silver linings basically on what has been just an awful season. I'm not giving up completely. I'll give them to the end of May. May's schedule after this Yankee series, the May schedule is not as tough as the April schedule or the first month or so. And, if you can get to close to 500 by the end of May, then I feel like getting Kittredge back, getting Bradish would be right around the corner at that point. Then maybe you can start to get optimistic again. But I mean, we're a far distance from that happening. We're 7 games under 500 right now. Maybe 6. There's 1 out to go. Just struck out Aaron Judge as I'm speaking. But yeah, it's tough. I do have some optimism that, again, if they could we need one spark. It's like, it's so frustrating because the talent it's there. Like the lineup is still good, even with guys out, Westberg on the IL. The lineup still has a ton of talent. The bullpen has been pretty darn good. It's been the most frustrating season since at least 2021, to be honest with you. And yeah, it's hard to be confident, hard to stay optimistic, but there is not room. I mean, there is no reason to like throw in the white towel necessarily yet, but it's getting pretty dangerously close to being to that point already.
Yeah, I kind of along Nick's line of thinking here that a month seems reasonable. I think you at least want to see some signs of improvement by mid-May, and then maybe you look at June, July, and August being when this team could heat up. And you go back in recent history, there have been some examples of teams that came into the year with expectations of being competitive, get off to horrible starts, and then rally over the course of the summer. And 2 of the better examples are the 2019 Nationals and the 2021 Braves, who both got off to bad starts and then ended up winning the World Series. The Braves in 2021 weren't terrible in the first half. They just kind of treaded water and then caught fire in the second half thanks to a good trade deadline. The Nationals, on the other hand, were horrible for the better part of 2 months and then turned things around in June and rode that wave to the World Series. That's probably the best case scenario for the Orioles, because with the injuries, and there are more that we're going to talk about in a little bit here, with the injuries, the turnaround for this team, if it's going to come, is not going to come immediately. So you want to see some signs of life, though, by the end of May, whether that's Zach Eflin coming back, Kyle Gibson performing kind of how we expected Charlie Morton to perform this season, Dean Kramer doing what he's done in the past and rally after a bad start to the season. That will all help. But again, going back to a point that Nick made, the lineup has looked rough lately. And we're now going on a long time since Adley Rutzman and Gunnar Henderson were both hitting at a high level at the same time. You got to go back to the first half of last year for that. And as much as we could talk about Ryan Mountcastle, Jorge Mateo, and we are going to talk about those players a little bit tonight, when your star performers aren't at the high level or anything close to that for long stretches of the season, it's going to hurt you. It doesn't matter what team you are. And Gunnar and Adley both have to find a way to get it going. I'm a little bit optimistic with some things we've seen from Gunnar lately. Adley, to me, just looks like he's not having a lot of luck at the plate, but it's clear that they need the two of them to get going again for this thing to have any chance of turning around.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, the Orioles won, so that's taken care of. That's one step in the right direction. You got to start somewhere. But yeah, it's definitely up to Gunnar and Adley to lead the way. And we know Gunnar missed pretty much the entirety of spring training. Look, now he's had all of April. He's shown flashes, like he's still hitting the ball hard, but he's striking out more than usual, walking less than usual. Hopefully by now, the end of April, he's up to speed and can kind of start to get back to being the Gunnar we know and love. Adley, I agree. His metrics are good. Like he was 1 for 3 with a walk tonight. He's walking the way he was in 2023. He's striking out not very much. I think he'll be fine. We honestly have hit into a lot of bad luck. If you look at the batting average for balls in play, and this is not an excuse to say that, oh, we should be this. Between the umps, I think we've got like a terrible record as far as advantage and disadvantage from umpire calls, and the batting average for balls in play. I think league average is like 290 right now, and our bats are in the 250s, and our pitchers are in like 329 or something like that. So we've had bad luck both directions. But yeah, it definitely comes down to the bats. Holiday is looking good. Jackson Holiday, he's looking much better as the year goes on, just continuing to improve. He's taking his walks now, which was, I think, this time last week he had only walked like twice or something, and now he's back up to at least an average, maybe slightly above average walk rate. But yeah, the bats got to get clicking. Ryan O'Hearn's doing his job. Ryan Mountcastle's not. Like you said, we'll get to him. But yeah, Nick, what do you think about this offense?
There's just so much focus on the pitching, and it's just like, it's just me and how I've been viewing the season. It's just like, how can we improve this? All right, looking down at Norfolk, what are these guys doing down there? All right, focusing on McDermott and Rogers, when are they coming back, and paying attention to the future of the pitching rotation. And meanwhile, yeah, you look and you realize just how bad this offense has been, and whether it's luck or not, like, I mean, you got people doxing hitting coaches on social media at this point already in the year. This is how bad it is after you just basically harass the last hitting coach to delete their social media accounts for a little bit. I mean, it's bad, but like, again, Ryan Mountcastle is just, we've said it all offseason, how replaceable he is. How can we not just bring up Kobe Mayo at this point and like just let it, if Kobe Mayo can't hit 207 with a 63 WRC plus to 100 plate appearances, we have bigger problems.
It's 198 with the 529 OPS for Ryan Mountcastle.
Well, there we go. So if Kobe Mayo can't do that, then we have a whole nother episode next week. What to do about Kobe Mayo? Like, that's, I know you got the service time thing that, Bob, you've been pointing out, but let's win some games here. The lineup is, again, something that, just thank God for Ryan O'Hearn and thank God for Cedric Mullins. That's about it.
Yeah, Mullins has been great in a contract here. One thing I think is going a little bit under the radar. Well, yeah, I'll start with this. Heston Kjerstad has not had a great start to the season. He's had moments like he had that huge home run, which I think got some fans off his back, but he has 1 walk to 24 strikeouts. He's got an OPS around 600. He can't play defense. He's really bad out in the outfield. So I know, again, it's not like there's a huge sample size yet, and he's shown flashes, but maybe you should have traded him in the offseason. I don't know. Hindsight is 2020. But also, just real quick, another example of a team that started really terribly and at least made it to the playoffs was the Houston Astros just last season. Started 7-19, and they were also 14-25 on May 11th. So if you're scratching, clawing for hope, there's another example. But yeah, it's going to come down to getting healthy, getting these guys confident or aggressive. I don't know what it is. Like, they're hitting the ball hard, but it's on the ground. I don't know. Maybe, the hitting coaches, they're still preaching the same method, the same ideas, but maybe it's just taking a little bit long for the newer guys to meld. I don't know. Excuse. But yeah, they got to elevate the ball a little more and do some damage.
Let's talk about Mountcastle, because if there's an obvious area of the roster where you could shake things up, it's that spot. And we had kind of expected over the offseason that one day you're going to see that the Orioles have traded Mountcastle, and maybe it'd be for bullpen help, maybe it'd be for a back of the rotation starter, but they would move on from him and get ready to have Kobe Mayo at the major league level in that spot with Ryan O'Hearn as the other end of that platoon. That doesn't happen, and from various reports that have been out there since the offseason ended, it was not for a lack of effort on the Orioles' part that Ryan Mountcastle wasn't traded. But apparently they just couldn't find a match that they felt comfortable with, so they didn't pull the trigger on a move. I thought as we got further into the offseason, he wasn't traded, that it was starting to become deliberate because they wanted to see if they could move the wall in and he could boost his value a little bit. Because, a 25 homer season with an OPS somewhere in the 750 to 800 range would get something out of some team next offseason. And then you would move Mountcastle. But he looks so far away from being not just there, but anything close to what he was last year. How long do you think realistically he has? Because for all the concerns that were there about Kobe Mayo after his performance in the majors last year, and after the bad spring training he had, he's shaking that off quickly. He's hitting well at Norfolk now. So statistically, that's a very obvious place where you can make a move. But do either one of you see that happening anytime soon?
I had some help in the Discord doing some math. Since Mayo didn't make it up in time to potentially earn them another draft pick, my theory is now they want to get that extra year of service time. And I don't think it's like service time manipulation on a Chris Bryant level, because I feel like you can kind of squint and see that there's a reason that they would want to do this, what have you. But I think just based off, he had 43 days of service time last year. So if you go by the rule book, it's sometime in late May. I want to say the 24th is like the first day he can come up and gain that extra year of service time. So that's my idea of when they're planning, or probably a little bit after that, so it's not so obvious. But I bite the bullet. Like, just make it happen. I don't know. Just extend him. If you want to keep him here longer than the 6 years, extend him. Because Ryan Mountcastle, I did some research. Since June 26th of 2024, 284 plate appearances. This is not including his 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts tonight. He's batting 240 with a, let's see, slightly over 600 OPS, 73 WRC plus, 3 home runs. 3 home runs since June 26th of last year. An ISO under 100 at 90, 4.6% walk rate, and even just extra base hits in general, 17 extra base hits since last summer. So that's not going to cut it for your everyday power hitting first baseman. And the walls come in, he still has yet to clear it. So it's rough.
Yeah. I again, if Kobe Mayo can't do this, then like you have much bigger issues. And when you look at kind of Mayo stuff in AAA right now, him and Beavers both got off to a little rough starts that first week, but as we've all pointed out, multiple times on multiple different shows, and they've both been very well improved. And Beavers is, of course, a different story. That's an outfielder who's, you're not going to put him at first base, but just Mayo alone, I mean, he's chasing less. You compare this year to last year in AAA, he's chasing less. He's swinging less overall, but making about the same amount of contact. He's still, hard hit rate was 43%. The hard hit rate percentage is up this year so far in AAA. He's walking more. He's striking out a little bit less. Like, he's shown improvements from his time last year in AAA compared to this year. And I think he's earned that other spot. I mean, defensively, honestly, I realized I haven't watched like any of his time at third base down in Norfolk. I don't know if you guys have or not, but I've just looked at the game time and it's been a little bit more at first base. I think he's up to 12 games at first base now, 10 games at third base. I feel like he's probably played third base few more times more recently, but it felt for a while there, a long stretch where I was really paying attention that it was just Kobe Mayo at first base. Like, they're grooming him for this. They're setting him up for this. He's not going to be a third baseman. He is going to be the first base. He's playing there regularly to take over this spot, take over the Ryan Mountcastle spot. Hopefully that's soon, honestly, because he's earned that second chance, and you got to get him up here to figure out if he's going to be able to settle in at the major league level or not.
Yeah, I did the minor league recap for the week this week, and amongst the research I did there, if you exclude the first 10 days of the AAA season, which is their 3-game series to open the season and another weekly series, Dylan Beavers has like a 175 WRC plus, just killing the ball, OPS just under 1,000, and Mayo is same exact thing, 176 WRC plus, 300 ISO in that time, just walking 13% of the time, striking out 23% of the time. Those are fantastic. Like, if you were worried that he was going to take his demotion and sulk, and which shame on you if you did, because clearly he's going to go down there and work and keep trying to improve, which he has done. And yeah, he deserves a shot as soon as possible.
And it wasn't even, you're talking about the major league level. Like, I remember that first week, yeah, Mayo's numbers looked bad. The strikeout rate was enormous. And you're like, all right, maybe a little cause for concern there, just because watching him early on, it just felt like opposing pitchers were just pelting him and Dylan Beavers, just pelting these guys with breaking stuff out of the zone. And these guys were just chasing, and it did look rough for a little bit. But I mean, Mayo, like, what was his batting average of balls in play? Like sub 100 through the first 6 or 7 games. And we're like, everything is checking out with Mayo. The strikeouts, not too concerned. Just give it and here we are. Like, give it 2-3 more weeks, and now he's got the BABIP up to about 300 now, but the average is climbing up. Everything's starting to fall in for Mayo, and he's still hitting the ball hard. So I like that as well. I mean, take that for what you will. Yeah, he didn't take that promotion and sulk. He went down there and then started running into terrible luck through the first week and a half worth of games after this demotion, and, saying whatever he said out loud that I had no issue with, but it could have went terrible, could have went completely sideways for him. And now look at him. He's one of the top hitters in AAA right now, once again.
Absolutely. Dylan Beavers is even funnier because he was striking out 47.4% of the time those first 10 days. And now ever since then, I think he's striking out like less than 15% of the time. So just wild stuff.
I think if you look at the other areas of the roster, there's some possibilities for reinforcements or some opportunities for improvement from players within the organization. And Chase McDermott and Trevor Rogers, I suspect at some point, once they show they're healthy and they're pitching well, are going to get a shot in the major leagues. Judd Fabian is putting together a very nice season so far in AAA. And although I don't think that the Orioles would want to run him out there a lot this year, I'm starting to sense that he could make his debut before this season comes to a close. Dylan Beavers, you both just touched on it, got off to a slow start, but has really heated up. And if he can maintain this pace, that conversation for him possibly seeing major league time this year becomes a little bit more likely. So looking around the rest of the roster, if you're going to try to make the 2025 Orioles better, outside of obviously trading for an ace, what else could you do?
Nick?
I don't know. It's almost May, so I hate to sit here and be like, let's just stay the course with a lot of these hitters and hope it breaks out, because you do need to shake it up. And maybe this comes back to, is it the coach, the manager in the clubhouse? I don't know. Like, at that point, it's like, the players are clearly, if the approach is working for hitting and they're just running into bad luck, and in a couple of days here, we see this offense break out and we see the pitching start to improve, like, I don't know, do we then turn to the manager and say, is there a shakeup needed up at the top? Or is just go ahead and taking the axe to Ryan Mountcastle enough to spark some energy? Like, I don't, that's what's frustrating as well. Like, you don't know what to do at this point. It's Mayo is an easy fix, I feel like. It would be nice to have Samuel Basayo in the conversation as well, but he had the injury. He won't be catching for the next couple of weeks, especially with his second injury there. But he's back and off to a hot start at the plate immediately over this past weekend in some limited at bats. I don't know. I would like to see them maybe be a little bit more aggressive with some of the internal options. You're promoting the lower level pitchers pretty quickly. I'd like to see the upper level pitchers be promoted more aggressively, and so put them in a position in AAA to see, all right, if can these guys cut it in the major leagues or not? Maybe go ahead and let's not wait till December to add, Beavers or Fabian to the 40-man roster. If they're swinging a hot bat, if Beavers keeps going like this and Heston Kjerstad keeps doing what he's doing, add Beavers to the 40-man now. Yeah, make the switch. Like, send Heston Kjerstad back down to Norfolk, bring Dylan Beavers up. Like, little things like that. And then teams aren't going to make trades right now. But when it does come time to get rolling on closer to the trade deadline, you just traded Matthew Etzel, Matt Horvath, and Jackson Ballmeister for Zach Eflin. Look at that Aberdeen roster right now. It's fun. It's fun to watch that Aberdeen roster. There are a lot of great names. You can make that trade again. And guess what? In 2 months or so, the 2025 draft is coming up. Orioles have one of the bigger bonus pools in this draft. It's a solid class. Don't let the conversation about the very top of the class and the chaos up there distort the view of the entire draft class. The Orioles have 3 very early picks at 19, 30, and 31. You can trade 3 of your top prospects for another Zach Eflin-esque arm. And guess what? Those guys are going to be replaced in Aberdeen in 2 months again. Like, you've got the firepower to be aggressive. I want to see more aggressive promotions. You be aggressive at the trade deadline, and let's make this thing happen.
Yeah, Alex Pham and Keegan Gillies. Let's get them up to AAA at least, for goodness sakes. Yeah, I think Ryan Mountcastle, Dean Kramer both have options. Let's use them once, the guys are healthy. I'd rather see Brandon Young run out there getting chances than Dean Kramer at this point, because Kramer has a 7 ERA and the splitter is not splitting. I mean, he just does not look that good. So go let him get right. Same with Mountcastle. Maybe if he goes down in AAA, starts getting confident and adjusts something and catches fire, then you can bring him back up if you have to. But I just feel like you can't keep running the same guys out there over and over again. Cut bait with Charlie Morton. It's over. Replace him with Kyle Gibson. Get Eflin back healthy. If you have Eflin, Gibson, Povich, Sugano, and just say Brandon Young, Chase McDermott, Trevor Rogers, whichever one of those 3 is performing the best, that's an improvement for now. I think if you replace Mountcastle with Mayo and you have a Mayo, Kjerstad, O'Hearn platoonish thing between first base and DH. Yeah, and we got to get Colton Cowser back. I really think that loss was huge. Yeah, and these guys just got to get hitting. But I'll be curious to see what happens if the season really spirals out of control and what they do at that point. Do they want to get guys up earlier to get them experience for 2026, or do they want to hold them down for the entire year and try to I don't know how things would play out in that case, but
yeah, and I hope that we don't have to see how that's going to play out. But given the way that the Orioles are playing right now, you have to keep that thought at least in the back of your head. My personal feeling on it is that even if things continue to go in the wrong direction over the next 2 months, that you still have to expect that this team will contend in 2026, because you're still going to have Gunnar. You're still going to have Adley. You'll have Kyle Braddis back. You'll have, hopefully a full season coming up of Colton Cowser. Hopefully Grayson Rodriguez's health is a lot better by then. Jackson Holiday, I think we're starting to see signs of what he's capable of. So you would still have, in my mind, even if this year goes south, you've got to think ahead to 2026 and know that there's a possibility for a rebound. And I know at this point, I think we would agree that it's way too early to speculate about what's going to happen at the trade deadline. But I'm still wondering, okay, do they go into the deadline with Ryan O'Hearn, contract year? Someone would love to have him as another bat down the stretch. Zach Eflin, as much as I hate to say it, would probably be in play for a trade at that point. And then Cedric Mullins, contract year, So these are the dark days that hopefully are not coming, but they might be.
Yeah, I mean, with Mullins, it's like I'd have to weigh the offers and see, is this better than potentially, if you're reloading, offering him the qualifying offer and hoping he accepts it and you get him for one more year at another contract year? Or is the opportunity at a high draft pick better than the offers that would be for a center fielder that's having a great year? With Eflin, I'd still try to extend him if he's willing to. Like, you're still going to be competitive. I would sign him to a 3 or 4 year extension still. If not, you could trade him and then re-sign him too. That's another option. Sugano, at this point, he's kind of playing himself into an extension candidate. I feel like if he likes it here and he keeps having success, maybe you bring him back for a 2-year deal with an option for a third or something along those lines. We traded a decent amount for Gregory Soto and not as much for Sir Anthony Dominguez, but Austin Hayes, good luck in Cincinnati. But relievers on expiring contracts, they tend to get some stuff. I'm not saying you have to trade them for like low minors prospects, but you could either do that and kind of build up the back end of your farm system, or you could try to trade them for guys who have team control that are closer to the majors. Yeah, there's no reason to like start a rebuild. The core is here. The core is going to be great next year, hopefully. Westberg, Rutschman, Henderson, Holiday. You bring up Mayo, you bring up Basayo. You let them get their experience so that they're more prepared for 2026. You bring in Judd Fabian to be your Ramon Laureano in-house. You give Dylan Beavers a chance, Heston Kjerstad a chance. Tyler O'Neill, maybe he opts out if he comes back and has a good remainder of the season. Or maybe you have him as a nice option for the next 2 years as well. I think there's still tons to be optimistic about with the Orioles when it comes to the big picture, the long term. Is as bad as it is in the here and now in the short term.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's, of course, you follow on social media, the comments, it's the window is closed. And it is, people want Mike Elias's head on a stick. The Mike Elias conversation this is trying to talk to anti-Mike Elias folks. I mean, it's like liberal versus conservative. We're two different parties. Us having a conversation trying to figure this out, that's the dumbest idea ever. It's not going to work out. You're not going to change my mind. I'm not going to change your mind. It's the same thing with the Mike Elias conversation. Mike Elias didn't injure these guys. Didn't put 13, 14 Orioles currently on the injured list. A bad year. I would have said this differently last week, but a bad year this year, as unfortunate it is, and it's something that none of us are ready to fully wave the white flag and admit defeat. A bad year this year does not mean that the window is closed because of a lot of those names that Bob just mentioned. And yet you would probably at that point see some of these major league guys traded off, and some of them you're probably going to see prospects come back and return. But like, you can still, on the hitting side, you're still going to be sitting pretty. Enrique Bradfield Jr. is going to be back healthy very soon. Enrique Bradfield Jr. is hitting very well for the second half of last year and tremendously well to start this year. So Enrique Bradfield's going to be in play. Samuel Basayo is certainly going to be in play. We've seen what that bat has been doing now that he's been healthy. If Mayo can figure it out, even better. Beavers and or Fabian, like if Dylan Beavers can be a game changer right here. If he's going to continue to hit like this, and we're witnessing the true Dylan Beavers breakout, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable. And then, like I said, there's still a good amount of prospect depth. I know some people don't agree with that point. There's still quality prospect depth, and there's a ton of draft capital in the chamber ready to go. You can still be super aggressive at the trade deadline, buying and selling, to keep that contention window pretty wide open. That window's not shutting just from one bad year.
Shift gears now to talk about some recent moves the Orioles made, as Jordan Westberg and Gary Sanchez were both placed on the 10-day IL before Monday's contest against the Yankees. Westberg going down as the left hamstring strain, while Sanchez has right wrist inflammation. To replace those two players on the active roster, the Orioles selected the contract of Maverick Hanley, a catcher, and infielder Emmanuel Rivera. And in a separate move, they optioned Grant Wolfram down to AAA Norfolk and replaced him with Cade Stroud. And we'll talk about this for a minute here. And Bob, I want to start with you because you made a point on a recent show about Stroud. And ERA, if you look at it, is pretty ugly. But his strikeout to walk numbers have been really good. And as we've talked about for a long time with Stroud, the pitch data has always been better than the results throughout his career. It's a big part of why the Orioles protected him with a 40-man roster spot over the offseason. So even if this does prove to be a short stint in the majors for him, what do you think we can expect?
I think you can expect there's a reason he's being brought up right now. I mean, yeah, it's because they needed an arm. Wolfram used his pitches up yesterday and they needed a fresh arm. But there is a very good reason that the Orioles like Stroud, despite his ERA at the AAA level, which is, let's see, 8.10 right now. This is an old list. Never mind. Yeah, it's very high, 8.10. Yeah, but his BABIP, you want to talk about luck? His opposing BABIP is 481. He has the lowest walk rate of his career and the highest strikeout rate of his career right now. His FIP is 2.35. His XFIP is 2.61. Short sample size, early season results. Definitely luck has not gone in his favor. He's performed much better than the results have shown. His Stuff Plus numbers are fantastic. His cutter is a 106 right now. He's thrown a couple sinkers. That's 95, whatever. Changeup is 91. His four-seam fastball is 100. His curveball is 109. His, I want to say, I don't know what ST is. Come on, a sweeper. 114 Stuff Plus on his sweeper. Like, he's got fantastic stuff, and he's controlling it this year better than he ever has. He's getting a lot of whiffs. He's going to lean on the cutter and curveball and sweeper. He's going to just throw the kitchen sink at you on the breaking pitches and then throw his average-ish but high-velocity fastball to keep you honest. I think he's basically what we were hoping Rodolfo Martinez was going to be at the start of spring training. I'm pretty bullish on Stroud, actually, despite the results early on here.
And I mean, everybody kind of got a taste of the Cade Stroud experience in spring training. Like, he is going to run into control issues, but you're relying on him for like one inning stints. And when he's on, he is on. And he's on a lot more than he's off. And especially this year, you mentioned the numbers there. It's a career high strikeout rate right now, 36%. And the walk rate is the lowest of his career. And the sinker, the fastball there, it's 96, 97, 98 miles per hour. And yeah, it may not grade out the best, but it's the second most used pitch. And he's getting a ton of chase and whiff on that pitch. That's been an effective offering down there. It's a guy you can throw out in one inning stints, but he's got 5 or 6 pitches. So like, he's always been a stuff monster. He's been the guy. Go back, I feel like that's like 3 years ago now. Was he Rule 5 eligible for the first time? It seemed forever ago. And John Muley coming on the show, and he was like, "Look, I'm making calls, preparing for this Rule 5 draft, and people are telling me this name Cade Stroud." And he dove into it and wrote a whole couple of big things there about Stroud and what that stuff is, and the velo increases after his injury. I know he missed a significant amount of time early on in his career. Came back out of nowhere, seemingly throwing like 99 in minor league games down in Sarasota. And the team was big on him. So, yeah, the AAA minor league ERA after 10 innings means absolutely nothing. You dive under the hood there with Stroud. There is a lot to like. We'll see how it translates to the major leagues. Hopefully he can be effective, and it's good to see. It's cool to see two guys like Cade Stroud get that MLB debut, a 2019 draft pick. It's really fun to see some later round picks. He was a 12th round pick in that 2019 draft with him and even Maverick Hanley. And he's talking about the low bar with Ryan Mountcastle and the pitching staff. Gary Sanchez also is leaving a pretty low bar to climb over there. And Maverick Hanley has been, dare I say, he's what, 15 games actually. I didn't realize he hasn't played too much, but he's putting up phenomenal numbers down there in AAA this year. So kudos to both those guys for getting the call.
Yeah, OPS near 1,000 for Hanley. He's hitting for some pop, taking his walks, stealing his bases as he always does. So he's decent framer, decent defensively. Yeah, Maverick Hanley. I think it's awesome that he'll get a chance to be a backup catcher for a little bit. But yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, the thing I keep seeing retweeted that is so obnoxious is Cade Stroud is going to be the first Michael Elias drafted pitcher to make his major league debut. Like Brandon Young didn't just make his major league debut as an undrafted free agent. And as we talked about, you trade for someone and you bring them up, it counts, but it's just frustrating. Narrative spinning.
And with that, now we will go into the final segment of the night. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing. Located at 1421 Ridgely Street, Checker Spot is not far from Memorial Park Academy Yards, making it a great spot for a pre or post game drink. And with the Orioles in town all this week squaring off against the Yankees or the Royals, you'll have plenty of opportunities not just to get Checker Spot at their location on Ridgely Street, but at Oriole Park Academy Yards, where you can find their signature beer, The Bird is the Word, and that is Checker Spot Brewing. And our final segment tonight is our usual look at prospects outside the top 30 portion of our top 50 who have done something good that we want to talk about, whether it's been a good game, a good week, or just something interesting in their stat line that we want to point out. And I will start this one off with Nick.
Yeah, I chose for my hitter, Raylan Ramos, to go down to Delmarva. I wrote about him coming into the season as a deep sleeper to watch in Delmarva. I know we brought him up again in the roster preview episode as a sleeper to watch. He had a great debut in the DSL like 3 years ago, but the last 2 seasons he's been impacted by injury. He's fully healthy now. I've enjoyed watching him defensively in the outfield down at Delmarva, but at the plate he's flashed. But I think hopefully this past week is a sign of he's really starting to settle in and be an impact bat at the lower level, because Lord knows they need some type of offense down there. Last week he was 8 for 23, so a 348 average, 810 OPS. He had 2 doubles, 6 strikeouts, just 1 walk, but it was good to see him make regular contact last week. And so, yeah, there's not a lot to watch offensively down there in Delmarva, especially with Miguel Rodriguez out for probably the full year. He's going to be out for a long time. It's good to see Raylan Ramos hopefully settle in. And on the pitching, I know Bob hinted at this earlier. Keegan Gillis, I'm just going to shout him out just because, like, can we, for the love of God, get Alex Pham and Keegan Gillis to AAA? Like, and I wrote about this over on Substack last week, just, some 10 early numbers that were standing out to me down the farm. And I wrote about Pham and prefaced it by saying he could never make an impact in the majors. He could hit the wall in AAA, and decades and decades of minor league data and prospect data show that the odds of Alex Pham becoming a major league contributor are very little. He's undersized himself. Speaking of little, he doesn't have big velo, but he relies on the kitchen sink approach and dotting his pitches and using that deep pitch mix, changing speeds and eye levels and all of that. Velocity isn't his carrying tool, but give the kid a chance. He's not a kid anymore. He's like a 26-year-old man. Give him a chance. Same for Gillis. Last week, Gillis pitched 4 innings in AA, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts on the year, 9 2/3 innings, 1 earned run, 0 walks, and a 40.6% strikeout rate. Hitters are swinging 10% more this year than last year, and the contact rating against Gillis has dropped from 69% to 58%, 41% call strike plus whiff percentage. I'm not begging for them to be pushed to the majors. I just want to see what they can do in AAA. Like, please get these guys in AAA, because they have no business at all being in AA at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I'll start with my pitcher then, because it's a guy who was signed as a minor league free agent in December of 2024 and started the season in high A, got promoted to AA, and then this week got promoted to AAA. Keegan Gillis is like, what the hell do I got to do? But Yarmil Geraldo who was 29 years old. So it's not like he's a spring chicken. He hasn't pitched in professional baseball since 2021. He was with Arizona system. I can't remember exactly, but I'm sure it was like the Mexican League, somewhere in independent ball. He's come up and his stuff looks really good. He's got a 4-seam fastball that sits around 95 miles per hour and averages 19 and a half inches of inverted break, right? Inverted vertical break. I can never remember what IVB stands for, but I know what it means. His stuff plus on that pitch is a 108. He also has a 106 cutter stuff plus and then a 100 stuff plus slider. So he's coming at you, getting some strikeouts. Very, very good start to the season. Very interesting pitcher that the Orioles have brought in and are trying to develop. And then on the hitter side, kind of along the same lines as Raylan Ramos. It's one of the few Delmarva hitters that are performing at all. It's Yasmil Buche, who is a 20-year-old catcher. He's kind of short, 5'10". It's kind of like Anutis Mordon territory, but the Orioles just keep pumping out catching prospects. Doesn't seem like there's an end coming on that supply train, but he is batting .268 with an .825 OPS, 143 WRC plus, walking 18.6% of the time, only striking out 17.1% of the time. His swinging strike percentage has gone down from 11.7 last year to 8.6 this year, and that's with moving up to a tougher competition. Contact rate is up 9%, up to 75%. So who knows? He hits the ball hard, and he's hitting it more often. So maybe he is something. Maybe he's nothing. But right now he's performing, and that's more than a lot of players can say on the Shorebirds or the Wild Ponies, depending on what day it is.
Good stuff. I'll start with my hitter. Jalen Vasquez put together a really nice series last week as the Ironbirds took on the Wilmington Blue Rocks, going 5 for 12 at the plate across 4 games with a double in there. Vasquez in 2024 got off to an excellent start at Aberdeen, but then it seemed like the pitching caught up to him. He couldn't quite get going at the plate again, but perhaps the second time around in high A is going to work out a little bit better for him. Not exactly eye-popping numbers at this point, but good on-base percentage at .367. He's a guy who can play a few different positions on the field. So hopefully this is a sign that the bat is really coming into its own there. And then for the pitcher, I'm going to go with Evan Yates, who had an excellent outing in relief on Saturdays as the Shorebirds defeated the Augusta Green Jackets. Yates had 5 innings, giving up just 1 run on 3 hits with 6 strikeouts against 1 walk. And this comes on the heels of back-to-back rough outings for Yates. His first outing of the year was 4 scoreless innings in a game against Fayetteville. Then he followed that up with a rough series at Carolina, going 2/3 of an inning, giving up 4 runs on 3 hits in 1 game. And then a little bit later that week, surrendering 4 runs over 2 1/3 innings pitched while walking 6. So looking much better on Saturday. And Yates, a 20th round pick in last year's draft out of Cal State Fullerton, is part of this group of Delmarva arms where there's some under the radar guys that have some interesting traits. We talked about Sebastian Gongora, a left-hander, a lot last week, and I think you could put Yates in that category as well.
Yeah, it's good to see him bounce back because he had one of the most dominant outings of the entire year down in the farm system. His first start, and then those next 2 were pretty rough. He struggled to find the strike zone a lot, and then it's good to see him bounce back. I love watching these young arms specifically have good seasons.
And with that, that does it for this episode. We'll be back later on this week to preview the FCL season, which gets underway this weekend. In the meantime, you can check us out on many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, and YouTube. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. Nick just mentioned his 10 interesting numbers piece, which ran late last week. And of course, Nick has been pumping out the draft coverage there. So you're going to want to check that out. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member of our community at the $3, $5, and $10 levels. You get bonus coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself in the form of weekly updates. And we are going to have our first monthly update to our top 50 prospects list this season next week. So you're not going to want to miss that. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network. Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to break down the FCL Orioles as their season is about to get underway this weekend. We're also going to talk about the uncertain future of the Aberdeen Ironbirds and whether or not this is possibly their final season in Aberdeen. And that will be coming up on tonight's show. So we're kind of at an interesting point in the calendar here, guys, where we're almost a month into the full season levels. And I think we're starting to see which of these hot starts is for real. We're seeing where some players coming back from injury, some guys getting off the slow starts. And in what's still a fairly new development, we get the FCL now in early spring. It used to be the FCL didn't start until early summer, usually not too long before the draft, back when the draft was in June. But now we get a little bit of an early start to the season, which means that we're going to see some guys that we've talked about on the show before, but because they're younger and have not been in professional baseball for very long, we still don't know that much about. So I know that this is certainly something we really enjoy, and just kind of curious to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have an official roster either for the FCL. We don't get video down there, not that I know of. I know there's lots of a lot of desire from some coaches down there in the FCL who want the game streamed, similar to how the Orioles started streaming Dominican Summer League games last year on YouTube. We'll see when the season kicks off, but yeah, this is where we start to see a lot of these guys for the very first time and you always see at least one or two names too, where you get some good reports, good information comes out. But I don't know how you guys want to break this down and talk about this, but I kind of have like two groups when it comes to two groups of prospects here down the FCL. I think that are going to be the most intriguing. And for me, the first one is, I think the other group's a little bit more intriguing, but this group, the high school picks from last year, because there were four of them, Nate George, DJ Layton, Andrew Tess, and Braylon Whitaker. I'm pretty pumped to see what these guys do, where they're playing defensively and what the numbers look like. Still don't know much about Whitaker, except that he's 19 years old. He hits left-handed and he's from North Carolina. That's about all I know. Excited to learn more about you, Braylon. Same for Tess. Like, he's a 19-year-old catcher, 18-year-old catcher from Florida. That's about all I know. Some good positive reports defensively, I think. It seems like he's a powerful kid. Looks like he might have some power in the bat as well. So we'll see how he fills out. But it's DJ Layton and Nate George are the top two there. And Layton had real buzz coming out of the draft. Good defense at shortstop, strong arm. I think he was even pitching like in the mid-90s when he was in high school. So, and we saw him in the spring breakout game. That was his first unofficial professional at bat. Was it an RBI single or just a single? Either way, he rocked one up the middle for a base hit, his one and only at bat in that game. So I'm pumped to see some data on him. And just for the vibes, I do think DJ Layton's going to be very good because he was committed to Southern Miss, a great college program. Healthy Reed Trimble, I think we can all agree, has been very, very good in this organization. You might be done with him because of the injuries, and I get that. He even got hit day one of this season and hasn't played since. But a healthy Reed Trimble is very great. Matthew Etzel, very little time in the organization, but he stood out among last year's draft picks before being traded to Tampa Bay. So therefore, both these guys come out of Southern Miss. DJ Layton was committed to Southern Miss. I think it's just the writing's on the wall. DJ Layton's going to be a fantastic prospect. Nate George, though, go back to our top 50 discussion. For me, he was one of the hardest prospects to rank personally, just because was he from Minnesota? He's like a Minnesota high school kid with limited travel ball experience. So not unknown, but kind of unknown in a sense. We know he's a fantastic athlete, track star, baseball star with real potential, speed, power. The ceiling's fun to dream on, but maybe questions about the hit tool. And I'm excited to see kind of what he looks like. And get more. I know Matt Blood was hyping him up in that spring breakout broadcast or some broadcast. I don't know, but I'm excited to get like some real numbers and real data on Nate George specifically, because he was one of my favorite picks, I think, in last year's draft class, just because of how fun it is to dream of what kind of player he could become.
Yeah, those are all good points. It's such a shame we're not going to get terrible quality footage between a fence link from some creep who has a Napoleon complex and is done a complete 180 on his thoughts on the organization. Go away. But yeah, I think an underrated part of the FCL season is when guys are hurt.
Cliffhanger. We won't know what Bob said next.
I know, yeah, it was a kind of a dramatic pause here. But while we wait for Bob to come back, Nick, I just want to go back to Nate George for a minute, because I know for myself, when I was working on my top 50, George is one of those players. It's like, I know that all the tools are apparently there, but because he was such a, it's almost like because he was such a good athlete, you're still not entirely sure who he is as a baseball player, because like you said, he was not a name you really heard on the summer circuits. But it does feel like there's a really interesting mix of tools here.
Yeah, he's like in our 40s, so I just figure it's fine to keep him in the 40s because he deserved to be on our top 50. And if he comes out hot and we get some good information out of Sarasota in the next couple of weeks, we'll bump him up. But yeah, I think George and Leighton are the two guys on, as far as domestic prospects are concerned. Those are the two big names to watch down there in the FCL. I'm assuming both are going to be on that roster. We don't have the official roster in front of us. Bob's moving, so I think he's back.
I got hacked. Someone was listening.
He's always listening and lurking.
All right. So I was saying, yeah, those 4 high school guys, they'll be a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if you heard, but the rehabbing guys, it's nice that you can kind of see them coming up back through, get some at bats before they return to their typical level. But I'm also super curious to see a lot of this great crop of international guys that were in the Dominican Summer League last year, between Jordan Sanchez, Elvin Garcia, number 4 or 5 prospect in our system, according to Fangraphs. Excited to see his progress. And yeah, just all those guys. I don't have the list in front of me. Steven Martinez, Emilio, not Perez, Sanchez, and yeah, all those guys. Jerome Noel. But it's going to be a lot of fun, even if it's just box scores. But one of the most things that has me excited for the FCL now that it's so much earlier in the season is that which guys are going to get that bump up to Low A Delmarva when the season ends, and how is that going to translate as a development tool moving forward, being able to get that extra experience instead of just another like few weeks or a month. It could be 2 or 3 months of extended looks at a higher level. So yeah, very curious to see how it shakes out. Even if we don't get video, it'll be fun to check those box scores every day for sure.
Well, and that is one thing that the adjusted schedule for the FCL does seemingly allow for, which is that you could see some of these players in Delmarva at some point over the summer. And Jordan Sanchez is really the first name that comes to mind for me, because there was some speculation, and I didn't think it was entirely unfounded over the offseason, that the Orioles might decide to let Sanchez skip the FCL and go straight to Delmarva. That obviously didn't happen, but given the numbers that he put up in the DSL last year, and that left-handed power that's raw but still shows up plenty of times in games, is for real. And I just would not be shocked if Sanchez goes there to the FCL, gets off to a fast start, and we see him with the Shorebirds before, I'm not going to say, before June or July necessarily, but some point reasonably soon.
Yeah, I thought Sanchez would be in Delmarva too. Just everyone loves to point out that he was older in the DSL last year, which you might have boosted the numbers a little bit. Like, that's true, but he's still only 19 years old right now. Orioles getting him for a little bit of a discount coming out of Cuba, but a 165 WRC plus in 38 games last season was pretty phenomenal. Yeah, Joshua Lorenzo, another name. I've been seeing some videos of him they've been seemingly playing the Pirates like every day. I feel like, and the scrimmages and stuff. But he's posting a lot of fun videos, some home runs, some deep drives into the gaps. He had a fantastic DSL debut in 2023, and then last year the numbers weren't good in the FCL, but there's the injury that delayed a season, and I just don't think he ever got going. Maybe the injury lingered. I don't know. But he was also 16 when he was in the DSL. He's just 18 right now. So, and this is year 3 in the organization. So excited to see him have a rebound year. You mentioned Sanchez, Steven Martinez. Yeah, he's still only 17 as well. He doesn't turn 18 until August. So even if he plays in the FCL all year, he will be 17 for the entire season. And there's a lot of buzz about Martinez. I think some believe he could be a top 5 prospect in the system in the coming years. He's going to strike out a lot, but crazy power. Sorry, look at this. Jonathan Mayo did put out something right before the minor league season that had, this doesn't have the rest of them. It just goes through the top prospects. He has Elvin Garcia, starting in Sarasota, so the FCL. And like you mentioned, he is number 5 on Fangraphs list. I think that's boosted up because Eric has like 60 future value power on Garcia. He only hit 1 home run last year. It's 25 present value power, but obviously some strong belief that Elvin Garcia is going to develop and be a power hitting, switch hitting shortstop, which would be awesome. But he has Emilio Sanchez, the other, I think is also $1 million+ signing bonus, switch hitting shortstop. They have Sanchez in the DSL, according to Jonathan Mayo, unfortunately. Either way, we'll get one of them. That'll be fun. And on the pitching side, I don't, again, we don't have the official roster, and the roster that's up right now, just everybody's hurt. It goes through the entire system. Esteban Mejia, I hope he's in the FCL. I know was ranked pretty highly on Fangraphs lists. I'm pretty sure I said on a previous episode last year, I think Esteban Mejia might have a higher ceiling than Keeler Morphe. If I want to stake an early hot take there on Mejia. And then just because Andy Fabian, guy I know we've talked about a lot, he's 22 years old. One of those midsummer international signings they give like what, $5,000 to, maybe $1,000, come sign with us. Older international arms. But watching him a couple times in the DSL last year, I like the stuff. I thought he could be in Delmarva as well. See what he can do. Dude's jacked. There's a grown man pitching among boys in the DSL last year, but I don't know. Could be a fun arm. I'm interested to see what pitchers pop because we'll see.
Yeah, as far as pitchers go, some possibilities are Jaderson Mora, Esteban Luna, Esteban Mejia, Luis Espinoza. He had a great year last year. Kevin Velasco had an amazing season last year. Andy Fabian, like you said, Adrian Heredia, Juan Raskin. Those are some guys that I had been watching last year in the DSL. And then on the hitter side, you got Felix Amparo, I think is kind of impressive. Adriander Mejia, another catching prospect. Jose Mejia is another short second baseman who can hit. We've seen that a million times in the system coming up. Juan Ortega and Luis Guevara. He just got promoted to Loe Delmarva when Edwin Amparo got banged up. So that's kind of intriguing that he was first man up when it came to an injury replacement at that level. He's 2 for 7 in the couple games he got in so far. But yeah, it's just going to be super interesting, as I think the international program is completely built up now. I think it's going to be more and more fun to watch as these groups that are so deep come up. And yeah, some guys might repeat DSL this year, but then I think the DSL is starting earlier too. So who knows? Maybe they get stateside before the year is out as well.
I'll go back to Fabian for a minute because I did watch a few of his starts in the Dominican Summer League last year. And what jumped out at me is that curveball is a legitimate pitch. I don't know that he necessarily has that deep of a pitch mix, but the curveball is really good. And he is a ground ball machine. It feels like when hitters make contact against Fabian, they get on top of the ball and just pound the ball into the ground. So someone to keep your eye on there. And then with Mejia, Nick, I think it's, you said this, and I think it's worth really emphasizing that you made the comment about Esteban Mejia possibly having a higher ceiling than Keeler Morphe before Morphe struggled a little bit early on this year at Delmarva. So that's not a reactionary take. Mejia's fastball is probably not as electric, if you will, as Morphe's, but he has a deeper pitch mix and he has more of the prototypical starter's build. And that's what has a lot of people excited.
Yeah, he also throws gas. I think it was whatever list we were talking about, and it was like, yeah, none of these guys can touch Morphe. Oh yeah, Mejia throws like 97. But again, when you compare it to Keeler Morphe, it looks like you're throwing 88. Yeah, I like Mejia just overall, especially if he can add to his frame. I'm curious. I just have this feeling that you're gonna see some hitters. Like if you're someone who really watches a lot of the lower level minor league ball, I truly believe you're going to see a couple of hitters trickle their way into Delmarva in the coming weeks. Just because the way that roster was set, like there's some arms in Delmarva who I think are going to be there for a little while. Like Cohen Aiken got promoted already. I think Sebastian Gongora should probably be promoted sometime soon. But the pitching, I think for the most part, is going to be there for a little bit. But those bats, like there's truly just not a lot. And we talked about, I think we had a mailbag question one time many months ago about comparing the recent international signing classes. And I said last year's international signing class was the best because you look at what they did last year in the DSL. And I know DSL numbers, they are what they are, but compare the key numbers that we talk about all the time to previous classes. And last year's class blows everyone out of the water. So I think you're going to see some fast risers and you're going to see these guys in Delmarva. I think Delmarva's lineup is going to look completely different in a month or two.
Thank goodness. But I just wanted to say a guy like Fabian, and the Orioles have proven they don't care how old you are. If you have potential or a pitch that they think is got good stuff, if you have velocity, if you have a sweeper, a slider that they think can play at the major league level potentially one day, they're going to keep you around until they think, nah, it's not going to work anymore. Cage Stroud, we just talked about on the last episode, is a great example of that. Even Tyler Birch, who was here way longer than I thought he would be, is a guy just because he had a wicked slider, they were keeping him around at hopes that they could make something work. So yeah, I like that about these flyers the Orioles take on these a little bit older international signings for low dollars that they might have one or two pitches that they think they can work with and they kind of hammer it. And you find guys like Yaiber Cartaya that way, and hopefully Andy Fabian or some other guys can end up being the next one along those lines.
And the rest of the draft class, I think we'll finally see make their debut, hopefully. I'm going through the list here just to see if there could be anyone else of note. And looking at last year's draft class, 9th round pick Jack Crowder from Illinois. He was a senior sign, but he should make his debut. Christian Rodriguez, 10th rounder from Cal State Fullerton. We may not see him for a while, unfortunately. But 13th round pick Brandon Downer, a pitcher out of Cal Baptist. He should be making 6'5", 225 pounds. He should make his he should make his debut in the FCL this year. And Isaiah Salinas, the 17th round pick out of Cowley County Community College in Kansas. He should also make his debut. Fun lefty there. And honestly, looking at this draft class, I'm also very excited to check the MILB transaction log one morning and see left-handed pitcher Carson Dorsey has been assigned to the FCL Orioles, knowing that later that in about 2 hours after that's posted, that means he's pitching and will be in Aberdeen in about a week.
Yeah, Dorsey was, I know for myself, a guy that I saw as a breakout candidate coming into this year. So hopefully he's back and healthy soon. We're going to move on now to a different topic that concerns how the Orioles player development system might look in 2026 and beyond. Last week, Justin Fenton of the Baltimore Banner wrote this story that has a pretty blunt headline. Mayor, Ironbirds era at Ripken Stadium is likely ending. Now, at this point, it is worth noting that Attain Sports, which owns the Ironbirds, or the city of Aberdeen, or the Orioles have come out and said that the Aberdeen Ironbirds will be relocating after this season. But you can see as you connect the dots Attain owns the Frederick Keys of the MLB Draft League. They also control an Atlantic League team that is still technically in existence, but has been dormant for the last few years because the Atlantic League is currently sitting at 10 teams, and that would leave them with an 11th. And in this banner story, which I would encourage you to read if you have not read yet, there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of complicated dynamics that have historically existed between the city of Aberdeen and the Ironbirds that we're not going to get into tonight. But some things that are worth pointing out is that there seems to be doubt about what will be at Ripken Stadium next year and beyond, because while seemingly it could be a draft league or Atlantic League team eventually there, it also seems like Aberdeen is interested in perhaps exploring some other alternatives, as that article notes that there is apparently a proposal in place for that to become a youth sports complex with a group headed by Washington Commanders owner Josh Harris behind that effort. It's also worth pointing out that the end of February, the Frederick News Post wrote a story about some of the work that is expected to take place at Harry Grove Stadium, the former home to the High A Frederick Keys and the current home of the Draft League incarnation of the Keys. And those renovations be very focused on player facilities with new clubhouses, batting cages, as well as training and recovery spaces. So it does feel like at some point there's going to be a break one way or the other where maybe the Ironbirds do end up staying in Aberdeen, or we find out that they are going to go to Frederick. And Bob, I will start with you here. Aberdeen, kind of in your backyard up there. This would be tough for Aberdeen to lose full season baseball, but there's a lot of things that it would affect, and I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that.
I didn't think 2025 could get worse as an Orioles fan. Happy for you, Frederick. Yeah, real happy for you. No, I think it's cool that, Frederick had been a part of this Orioles minor league affiliates for a long time. I think it's cool that they're getting a team back. I wish it wasn't at the expense of the closest team to me in Aberdeen, but hey, it is what it is. If they're not getting the attendance or whatever behind the scenes isn't working out, then that's just the way it goes. But yeah, it's disappointing, but at the same time, who knows? Down the line, maybe Aberdeen could be the AAA affiliate. I don't know. That's maybe wishful thinking. But sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to take away Norfolk from you. But yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing, but at the end of the day, look, they're going to do what's best for them, and that's okay.
Hey, we're at the end of the day. I didn't grow up in Norfolk. Grew up in Suffolk. But it's a 15-minute drive. So I essentially grew up in a minor league adjacent town. And honestly, it's like when I was little, it was, this is baseball. This is a big stadium. This is really cool. I like baseball. And then as I got older and, learning, okay, this is minor league ball and this is how it goes. And I just thought it was really cool. Like I could go watch a Tides game, and then the next weekend, that guy could be playing for the New York Mets, and I could watch him on TV. And I thought, middle school me thought that was the coolest thing ever. Obviously, the Orioles, of course, they didn't become an Orioles affiliate until 2006 when I left the city to go to college, but that's how life goes. So I could imagine, like, again, hindsight's 2020, but I could imagine if the Tides weren't a AAA team, a minor league team, if they were just an indie ball team, or the draft league wasn't around back then, but that type of team, would I have gone to the hundreds of games that I went to as a kid? Probably not. So I do feel for the people of Aberdeen, and if there still is going to be a baseball team there, hopefully the town embraces them. But it is cool for Frederick. They're going to be now the closest affiliate for me personally. It's still an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, so it's still going to be nearly impossible for me to get to right now. But yeah, we'll see. The only thing, my only take, because again, I'm not up there, I don't have the connection, but I feel for the people of Aberdeen who enjoyed going to those Ironbirds games, knowing they're watching future Orioles. But two things, regardless, Orioles fans are still extremely blessed, especially the Orioles fans who follow the minor leagues, to have all four affiliates this close. I know a lot of y'all up there think Norfolk is like on Pluto. But we're all very blessed to have all four affiliates very close to home base, aka Baltimore. You look at right down the road for me, Richmond, the Richmond Squirrels are the San Francisco Giants AA affiliate. Like, how many of these East Coast affiliates, East Coast teams are affiliates of West Coast organizations? Like, it's pretty awesome to have all 4 affiliates as close as they are to see in person and follow closely. But yeah, the move to Frederick specifically, we know that is a hitter's haven. It can be a hitter's haven. And so I know I've already seen this comment a couple of times. As far as player development goes, that's where my brain went to, first of all. I am curious to see if it impacts, the numbers at the high level. My first gut instinct was probably not, because a lot of the hitting struggles we see in high A from prospects, it's not because Aberdeen is a tough place for hitters. Daryl Hernandez was very open and honest about a lot of the deficiencies at the Ironbirds ballpark that did lead to some issues on the hitting is concerned. But Baseball America, the Park Factor stuff they put out every year, Aberdeen is pretty hitter friendly. It's bigger than the Park Factors. It's first year guys adjusting to pro ball, a lot of off the field stuff they're adjusting to as well, that maybe leads to those initial struggles for a lot of guys. So my first gut instinct would say, no, we're not going to see this offensive boom among the high A prospects if the move is officially made to Frederick being the high A affiliate, which seems like it is. But it will be something to monitor moving forward. Do the pitchers, how does that impact the pitchers if they're giving up double the amount of home runs now? And the batters, it's going to add a whole nother new wrinkle to our development when we're watching these guys.
Yeah, I remember when we first started the show and we were preparing for what we thought was going to be the 2020 minor league season. One of the things we had noticed is that within the last few years leading up to that, there was a trend of pitchers' walk rates and home run to fly ball rates going up when they went from Delmarva to Frederick. And then for some pitchers, they would actually perform better in Bowie than they would at Frederick. But and I don't know if that's going to change, if anything in the renovations is going to change the dimensions or the way that the ball would play there. But yeah, I would expect that you might see the results skew a little bit more hitter friendly than they have at Aberdeen. But like Nick said, there's factors that have nothing to do with the park that lead to hitters struggling or having success early on.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll have more on that story because there's going to be a lot more coming out about it here in the next few weeks and months, I suppose. But in the meantime, just something to put on your radar. And for that, we will go into our final segment of the night, Last Call, brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridley Street. Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, and it's the perfect place for a pre- or post-game beverage. And if you happen to be going to the game, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities this week to get out there, you can find one of their signature beers, The Bird is the Word, at the beer stand behind home plate. And that's Checker Spot Brewing. And our last call segment tonight is a question that came from one of our regular listeners, Devin. And Devin asked this in Discord. What do you think the rubric for Mike Elias is? I think most fans just kind of approach it as talent didn't sign here. Talent that did sign here is underperforming, and no one's extended yet. Sucks, referring to Elias. But I feel like that's attributing a bit too much power to him. What are the things he should be graded on when considering him?
This is a really good question. I think I have complaints about how this season has gone from a front office perspective. It's probably not the same ones that a lot of fans and radio hosts, JLC and callers are complaining about. But I think when we're at this competitive window now, we're hoping and expecting to be competing for World Series / playoffs year in and year out. You got to be able to kill your darlings a little quicker, in my opinion. So the Jorge Mateos of the world, the Ciano Perez's of the world, they have some tools and talents that can help the team. And you don't want to let them go for nothing. Ryan Mountcastle, another example. But at the same time, don't let a guy like that, that reason stop you from making an improvement on the roster in another way. But as far as what I'm like grading Elias on is basically just the overall health of the organization as a whole. We don't have to be a top farm system, but just keeping the player development system intact, having guys come up, just graduating minor leaguers into major leaguers, basically keeping the expectations coming into the season every year that we should make the playoffs. Injuries, bad performance, bad luck, that kind of stuff is out of his control. So if as long as he's putting a team together that on paper coming into the season is a playoff contender, World Series contender, then I will be content. And as long as you keep the core, it doesn't have to be Gunnar and Adley for the next 12 years. It could be right now it's Gunnar, Adley, Holiday, Westberg. And then in 2 years, it could be Gunnar on his last legs potentially in Baltimore, but you got Mayo and Basayo now in there with Holiday. And I don't know. I think just the overall health of the organization from top to bottom. And yeah, I'd rather have a year like this, but have the overall health be what it is than the run from 2012 to 2016 every day of the week, which we also missed the playoffs 2 years in that run too, by the way.
Yeah, I can't. And I think this kind of stems from somebody asking, if I remember correctly, someone asking, like, is Elias's seat hot? We know Hyde's is Elias's seat hot? And it's like, I don't think it's even lukewarm. And I call me a bootlicker all you want. I don't care anymore about the people who, that's probably the biggest thing I think we get backlash for, is people think we're Michael Elias worshipers over here. I don't care about ownership. I have thoughts about Orioles ownership and bobbleheads. I don't care about ownership. I truly don't care. I don't ever want to see David. I don't need to see him on camera at all. I don't need to see Michael Elias on TV at all. I don't care about those guys. I care about the players on the field. That's what I'm paying attention to. And you've put together a really good team here. Yeah, there are qualms. I have major qualms about how this pitching staff looks coming into the season. I don't want to get into the whole offseason stuff with Burns, Snell, whoever, Fried, whatever. It's done. It's whatever. I would like to see Bob. I think Bob put it best there. I would like to see more aggression from this front office when it comes to, if change needs to be made at the major league level, let's start making those changes and stop being so completely risk averse. Like, this organization does take risk, but I do feel like a lot of that risk is in the draft. Taking guys like Vance Honeycutt and Judd Fabian, like, those are risk. You see it in the minor league level, like, they're very progressive in their hiring of guys down in the minor leagues in terms of coaches and everything. And they've done a fantastic job on the coaching side of putting the minor league side of this organization in an unbelievable place, to where they can take a pitcher in the 14th, 15th round of the draft with a 6 ERA in college and a high walk rate, and 2 years later, they're getting top 100 consideration overall. Like, all that is there. So I do agree. I like that point that you made. I would like to see the more aggressiveness like that at the major league level as well, and see, like, if maybe Hyde may or may not be the issue, but if there's an inkling that a leadership change would do something, don't be afraid to wait till the end of the season. Just do it now, and let's see. I'd rather take that risk if you think that could pay off. I don't know. You could say Tyler O'Neill is a risk as well, a risky signing and spending more money, but I want to see bigger swings, not just from the players themselves, some bigger swings from leadership. But I have my qualms, I have some issues, but overall, I'm happy with where this organization is at, and I don't think for a single second that Elias's seat is anywhere close to being hot.
Yeah, personally, sorry, Zach, I just want to say something real quick. Been an Orioles fan for a long time. Seen a lot of incompetency in the front office, in the owner's box. So I'm just happy we have one of the most advanced, progressive, at least on the player development side of things. And they're very competent when it comes to the major league side, even if the results aren't there right now. So I don't want to give that up just because, we're not getting what I want. Oh, it's not, we didn't go all in. What? Oh my God. Just, okay. We have someone in control that knows what they're doing, an ownership that's letting them do it for now. I am looking forward to the day when it's Eve as GM and Mike is the president of operations, but that seems inevitable at some point.
This is an excellent question, and there's a lot of direction you can take, and I think you both summed it up nicely. The overall health of the organization is my biggest concern, and I will just say this up front: every executive in baseball, any sport, any business has their blind spots, and Mike Elias has his. And you could chalk that to any number of things. It could be what Bob said about maybe the lack of aggression in moving on from players when it's clear that this is not going to work out. I could, point to some of the fact that it seems like pitchers, and this is something we talked about recently, pitchers don't really seem to get that jump from AA to AAA that quickly. And I don't know how much of that is Mike Elias, but I wish that the Orioles would start to look at that a little bit more closely. But I think overall, Mike Elias is still doing a very good job. Yeah, there's some things that haven't worked. There's some chances he's taken that haven't worked. And I do think that he needs to lower the risk aversion when building the major league roster. It's not that he's a risk adverse general manager across the board, but there's some risk aversion in building this roster that shouldn't be there. I understood it when John Angelos was the owner and you had limited resources, but now you've kind of got the resources to do this thing. And then Connor Newcomb pointed this out when he was on our show back before the season. The Kyle Gibson signing would not have happened under John Angelos because you're not going to pay $5 million for a starter who might not be on your team all year. Now it looks like Gibson's going to be around a while, but those are the kind of things you can do now. And I just think that as Elias adjusts to a different reality with a different owner, he needs to figure out how to deploy those resources. That's not something he had to think about before. And now it's something he's really got to think about because I said this on the last show, the window has not slammed shut. I still stand by that. But we know that taking chances sometimes means that you're going to keep that window open. And look, there's probably going to be some moves that help in the long run that are going to be unpopular up front. But the Orioles just have to make those. And I think Elias is going to figure it out. He will eventually figure that out. And it may, again, come back to who the manager is, may not. We'll see. But I think that what you should look at is the overall health of the organization. Are their processes evolving to keep up with the rest of the league? And if he's able to do that, I think he's generally going to be successful.
It's a good point. This is a very, very smart front office. So even if something's not working, they're going to adjust. They're going to adapt. And maybe the smart thing is to let bad luck even out. Maybe it's not, but I think they have a plan at least. And that's more than we could say in some years past.
Yeah, we all got spoiled, right? We've all been spoiled by draft picks hitting at an alarming rate, all these prospects, top prospects coming up. And even if they needed the reboot, they've come back to the major leagues, they hit the ground running. And for the first time in a couple of years now, we're seeing guys hit roadblocks and we're seeing some stumbles and we're seeing the injury variants not go our way. And that's something that the front office can't control, is the injuries, which has been a major thing. And I don't know, and maybe there is something, again, to this whole, the ability of guys to transition a little bit more quickly to the major leagues. Maybe that's a blind spot there. Maybe that's the next step that the organization needs to look at. You can get these guys pushed aggressively through the minors, and then when they get to the major leagues, it's the start, stop. They need the reset, they need the reboot. And then I know you hear it all the time. You see people like, why can't our prospects do that when we watch other teams' top prospects come up and hit the ground running? Yeah, that's frustrating as well. And maybe that's something that the organization needs to look at. But I don't, it's not bootlicking. It's not looking at this orange colored glasses to like trust what this front office is doing and understand that the health of the organization as a whole is very high and that they have long-term, they're keeping the long-term in check here. And that's what's most important. And I don't know, we'll see. I'm anxious to see what this next month brings. That's all I have to say, is that this next month does feel like a turning point though. Like does this front office make a drastic decision, a big time decision to shake things up? Does the team figure it out and put themselves in a good position? And then we can just worry about, all right, who are we going to acquire at the trade deadline? I don't know. I do feel like this month is for this year. This next month is a turning point. But again, long term, yeah, the window is not shut. The window's still wide open. It's just we've had a good run lately. It's gonna end eventually, but it's not dead. It's just paused right now for this couple weeks.
And with that, that does it for our coverage this week. We will be back next week to cover all things in Birdland. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, Orioles on the Verge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member. You'll have access to bonus weekly coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself, and our first monthly update of the season to the top 50 list is coming next week. You're not going to want to miss that, and that will be available to anyone who is a paying member of our Patreon community at the $3, $5, or $10 levels. For Bob Phil and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Sweden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.